The skies above Tehran burned again. Before dawn could break over the Iranian capital, the thunder of war once more echoed through its narrow alleys and crowded streets. Israel had fired a fresh wave of strikes, not just at Tehran, but across other key Iranian cities. Precision, power, purpose. A campaign both surgical and symbolic, underscoring that the game of deterrence had now become a game of domination. This was no ordinary escalation. It came in the long shadow of a day already painted in fire. The day before, U.S. bombers and submarines had unleashed devastation upon 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities, targets long watched, debated, feared. Those strikes were devastating, but they were not final. Now, less than 24 hours later, Israel had added its own ferocity to the conflict. Not in whispers, but with missiles. According to Israeli military sources, the decision came in response to new threats emerging from Iran's ballistic arsenal. Missiles had reportedly been launched from Iranian territory, whether in defiance or desperation, no one could yet say. But one thing was clear: Israel was not waiting to find out. It was acting with the full weight of decades of enmity. Acting with a clarity of purpose forged in wars past and intelligence gathered in shadows. Acting with one eye on its own security and the other on the trembling chessboard of Middle Eastern geopolitics. And as these explosions lit the early morning sky, another explosion rippled across the diplomatic landscape, this one born not of TNT, but of rhetoric. President Donald J. Trump, in a statement just hours before the strikes, had raised the specter of regime change in the Islamic Republic. Regime change. 2 words that carry the weight of history. 2 words that echo with memories of Baghdad and Tripoli, of Kabul and beyond. The world paused. Allies listened. Enemies stiffened. And inside Iran, those words sent tremors across the halls of power and calm, in Tehran, in every nuclear command post buried deep beneath the mountains. But even as the bombs fell and the words ricocheted, one question loomed above all: what remains of Iran's nuclear program? U.S. officials were, for once, hesitant to speak in absolutes. Despite the success of the coordinated airstrikes, they admitted they did not yet know whether Iran's capability to produce a nuclear weapon had been fully neutralized. The location of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. Still a mystery. That ambiguity is the most dangerous thing of all. Because in the fog of war, it is the unknowns that cause nations to overreach. It is the fear of what might be hidden that sparks preemptive action. And so, the world watches. Watches as a nation under siege tightens its grip on its ideology. Watches as another, armed to the teeth and backed by nuclear-armed allies, enforces its red lines with steel. Watches as American diplomacy hangs in the balance, between peace and provocation, between deterrence and destruction. Within Tehran, the mood was one of defiance mingled with dread. The official news channels downplayed the attacks, as expected. But on the streets, among the whispers and rumors, the people knew. Something bigger was coming. Something historic. Not since the opening weeks of the Iraq War had the Middle East felt this unstable. And not since the Iranian Revolution itself had the foundations of the Islamic Republic been shaken so violently, militarily, diplomatically, symbolically. For the leadership in Tehran, the challenge is immense. Respond, and risk annihilation. Stay silent, and risk being seen as weak, even by their own. But for Israel, this is not about symbolism. This is about survival. For them, a nuclear-armed Iran is not a distant policy concern, it is an existential threat. Prime Minister Yossi Dagan, addressing the Knesset just hours after the strikes, made that point clear. "We will not wait for the world to act," he said. "We will not let history repeat itself." Never again means never again. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Trump's words continued to resonate. He had not said that regime change was imminent. But he had opened the door to the idea. And when a U.S. president opens that door, the world must reckon with what may walk through it. For now, American forces remain on high alert across the region. Naval groups have been repositioned. Embassies have gone dark. Oil prices have soared. And the global stock markets have reacted with fear. And yet, through all this, the world is left with unanswered questions. Where is Iran's uranium? How much was destroyed? Has the nuclear threat been delayed, or merely enraged? Intelligence analysts are working around the clock. Satellites scan for signatures of enrichment. Drones hum silently over deserts and seas. Every diplomat, every general, every journalist is racing to get ahead of a story that is moving faster than anyone expected. And amidst it all, the people of Iran, millions of them, are caught between forces they cannot control. Some cheer the resistance. Others beg for peace. Most just want to survive the next day. This war, whether overt or covert, has entered a new phase. No longer limited to covert sabotage or diplomatic standoffs, it has become a war of visibility. A war of declarations. A war where both sides seem willing to go further than before. Israel has made its message clear: deterrence will now come with action, not just words. America, too, is shifting its tone, from caution to confrontation. And Iran must now decide if it will respond with fire or silence. But silence will not last long. In this region, nothing ever does. The next 72 hours may shape the next 20 years of Middle Eastern history. And as missiles fly, as bunkers burn, and as leaders weigh impossible decisions, the rest of the world must ask itself a simple question. What happens if this isn't the peak? What happens if this is only the beginning? Because beneath the rubble of nuclear facilities and the ashes of diplomatic restraint lies a simple truth: peace, once broken, is not easily restored. Not in this land, not in this century, and perhaps not ever.